Hello everybody, Jet here and welcome back to Let's Talk Total War Three Kingdoms, where we are going to be going through, well, you can probably guess it from what you can see on the screen, part 2 of the diplomacy blog they did. So we're going to read through this and discuss it. There is, again, another video up. This is going straight up on my Twitter, guys, so by all means jump over there to have a look. I'll also link the video in the description, guys. I've not read through this, so do excuse me if I do trip over myself just a little bit. But I'm just trying to get this out quickly because I'm quite busy today. I will be doing some discussion as well, as always, guys. So, in this second part of our close-up, diplomacy, a close-up look at diplomacy in Total War Three Kingdoms. And like the first part is accomplished by a video, which you can watch here. So there's a link there. In this one, we're looking at how faction alliances work in the game and how their functionality has expanded from previous titles. This is a bit of a short one than last time, by the way, guys. You don't need to necessarily worry about making yourself a big load of Tifa. Sorry, I keep looking at my other screen. That's where I'm recording, and I'm just checking it's actually recording rather than talking for 5 minutes like I did that 5 minutes ago. I thought 5 minutes, then realised it wasn't. So, if you didn't catch the first video or blog, you can catch them here and here, so there's links there, guys. Also, there are links, and I've got a video on them. So, pop history time. In the wake of the Han Dynasty's steady collapse, the Three Kingdoms period was characterised by a series of shifting coalitions and alliances that formed, drifted, collapsed, reformed anew, as China's warlords pursued various agendas, and the country tacked the winds of change towards ultimate unification. This is something we deemed vital to reflect in Total War Three Kingdoms gameplay, so we've made some pretty fundamental changes in the way the alliances work, and moulded them into two distinct forms, coalitions and military alliances. While they share many common features, they offer different levels of choice, control and commitment. Now, I've already watched the video. Now, I don't know if we're going to get more detail in this, but it looks really good and really fundamental, but really good, important changes, which hopefully, they'll probably bring 2 games they do in the future, and they're really good changes as far as I'm concerned. So, what do they have in common? Well, the main elements are increased diplomatic standing with other members and decisions by consensus. Any major action which affects the alliance, such as taking it as a whole to war with another alliance or inviting another faction to join, for example, requires a vote. You'll see this represented with an on-screen yes or no prediction for how each member warlord is likely to vote. And naturally, the majority vote is always required for its success. Now, as a whole, that is an important thing, because I'm sure it's going to go into it later on, but you can still go to private wars with factions, which I think is a very nice idea. An important consequence of alliances voting is how it can affect attitudes of voting members. If a warlord proposes an action to his alliance and the result of the subsequent vote affects the attitudes of the voters in line with how they voted. If the outcome matches the way they voted, their attitude will improve towards the warlord who proposed the action. If the vote doesn't go their way, their attitude will fall. So sometimes it is worth lending your support to an initiative you're not entirely comfortable with in order to keep your relations with other alliance members strong. Basically, scratch their back, scratch your back. If you help them, they'll help you, and it'll keep your alliance powerful. But obviously, sometimes you might not necessarily want that. You might want your alliance to slowly slip. So, sorry, muted while I was coughing. We've also approached alliances with the iteration of making power groups more easily identifiable and more elegant to achieve on a technical front. In previous games, joining an alliance would require individual treaties between individual factions. So an alliance of 3 factions would require 3 individual treaties. Now, when a faction joins a coalition or a military alliance, either through application or invitation, they become part of a group and automatically allied to each other. You can then group the diplomatic faction lists by alliances, so you can easily see who's in a coalition or military alliance with who. Plus, when alliances are formed, they are assigned a suitably lofty title, such as the Sacrificial Tree Alliance of a Thundering Sky Coalition. And as you see, guys, so alliances are now not one-on-one things, because even when they're saying, you know, you'd have to have 3 alliances, actually it didn't quite work like that, because say I was allied with faction A and I was allied with faction B, unless they were also allied with each other, you know, it got very complicated to maintain the things where people would actually go to war, and you'd actually be able to find the chink in that armour and go to war with one faction, which would pull less in, or join wars and things, you know. So when you went to war, I went to war with you, all of my allies would go to war with them, with that faction, but they wouldn't necessarily go to war with their allies. This is making it a much bigger, more integral thing, and it's a much better way of how it works. So rather than being individuals, it's big power blocks will go to war with each other. Now, that said, I do think there is still some need for the individual things, but we'll see how this works. I don't know, you know, don't know if you're still going to have like individual alliances that are guaranteed to go to war. I guess you can guarantee people's independence, can't you? So there will be other ways of doing that. Alliances also affect how you use your armies. Armies are now dependent on military supplies to ensure factors such as morale and replenishment remain at tip-top. We've already thought this may be the case. And while being in friendly territory improves your supplies, campaigning in enemy territory reduces them. Extrapolate to extremes. This means striking deep into enemy territory for long periods will erode an army to uselessness over time. In short, the system places a more realistic limit on the army's effectiveness and range. Both coalitions and alliances enable you to increase this range, as fellow members' territory is treated as friendly for the purposes of gathering military supplies, coupled with the fact that you'll gain campaign line of sight over your alliance's territory. Alliances therefore create staging opportunities against enemies that lie further afield. So, back we've got supplies. Now, supplies, I like supplies. I really like the idea of supplies. I like them in Britannia. I like them in other games. In fact, I think they should be harsher in Britannia. Now, I know a lot of people do not like the supply for mechanics, so that's going to be a controversial one, but I understand why they're doing it, because otherwise you can just march your army. You know, like in Warhammer, I can march my army across the world with no negatives to it, and with some factions that kind of makes sense, but you know, there's no, it's not a good thing to be able to do that. It's not realistic. You know, you should be able to do that, but you'd have to do a lot of preparation first and things, so we'll see how this goes. So now I'm going to talk about coalitions. A coalition is a looser form of the two arrangements and less binding in nature. Coalitions are easy to sign up to early in the campaign. You only need a moderate diplomatic standing with other factions to form one, and they're fairly ephemeral. While you're in a coalition, your diplomatic standing with all members improves, and any factions that you're at war with will lose diplomatic standing with your coalition buddies. Over time, this can help create more like-minded factions in terms of their attitudes towards the world around them. However, coalition members have no major contractual duty to each other. There are no specific terms of mutual defence, for example. If a faction declares war on a faction that is a member of a coalition, they declare war only on that faction. But by the mere fact your standing improves over time with coalition members, it becomes much easier to carry military support through with individual member factions in the event you're attacked. So coalitions are more we're a group of buddies, we're all friends with each other, you know, we're not formally obliged to do anything, but we're stating publicly that we are friends, we are working together. This is where military alliances differ. If a faction declares war on a member of a military alliance, he can treat it as a private war and duke it out as normal, or he can call all alliance members to join the war, and crucially, they are duty bound to join. It's not an option for them. It's basically part of the EULA for joining the military alliance. And the thing that makes military alliances a far more binding form of commitment than a coalition, a military alliance essentially grants you a cast iron guarantee of group defence in times of war. As you can expect, this makes the cost of entry much higher as well. You will need to be a marquis, I can't believe I said that, a marquis rank rank or better to sign a military alliance with another faction, and you'll need considerably higher diplomatic standing than you would to sign a coalition. After an alliance is formed, however, factions of any rank may be requested to join, or to be invited to join by a member faction, which goes to vote. So there's one thing they haven't mentioned here. So you can, if you are in an alliance, you can declare a private war. So I can go, I want to go to war with you, and I cannot call my alliance in. Now, obviously, if it's an alliance member, I possibly want to call my alliance in. But obviously, there's chances they'll grab territory and things then. So you do still have that private war option, which is good. They should kind of do some way where big alliances can, if you're picking two factions within alliances are picking on each other, they can go, we're just going to have a private war. We're not going to put our alliances in before they start the war. But I don't think you're going to get that option, because that would be a little too... take the risk out of it too much. The exceptions to this rule are Yuan Shao and Yuan Shu. They're both able to sign coalitions and military alliances right from start of game, so some people have that as a bonus, which is quite nice, though they might not be able to do it straight away. It's by no means impossible to solo your way through Total War 3 kingdoms, and indeed you'll ultimately need to stand alone when you ascend to the lofty status of Emperor. But to ignore the benefits of coalitions and alliances would be a failure to exploit the leg up they can give you in terms of inter-faction relations, group defence, and crucially, in combating other powerful multi-faction alliances, which invariably rise as the campaign progresses. The AI isn't shy about signing coalitions and military alliances of its own, and you'll see major power blocks forming as other faction goals and interests align. So this is a very interesting one. It's a bit small, as I said, it's covering one particular thing rather than the last one, which covered quite a lot. Now, we have obviously mentioned, as I mentioned, we've mentioned, where is it? Anyway, it doesn't matter where it is. We've mentioned supplies again, which I know a lot of people are not going to be happy with. But it's very, which supplies are going to be controversial no matter what they do, I think. But no, it does sound like a very good rethink of the whole diplomatic system here. And go watch their video as well, because there's a bit more in there. They do cover slightly different things, and they explain them in slightly different way. So reading this and looking at that is still a very worthwhile. But the video makes it clear that as the game goes on, alliances are going to become more prevalent. So to start with, it's going to be a lot more bitty. As I think is apt for the period, not that I'm an expert on it, but I kind of have a rough grounding. I've been trying to build myself a rough grounding. So to start with, it's going to be a bit more of a little scramble for power. Everything's all over the place. There's no real major power bases, and everything's fallen apart. So there's going to be all the little individual squabbling going on, and as factions establish themselves, they'll start forming longer term coalitions as time goes on. Then these will slowly form into alliances, but they may come and go. Certainly with coalition stage, coalitions will come up, then they'll disappear as people diverge, and factions do, and you'll slowly build into these power blocks. They will naturally form as time goes on, which will shape how China is divided up and how the conflicts go. Obviously, eventually you're still trying to pursue your own goals. You are wanting to expand yourself, but I can see, much as they say you can go it on your own, I can see if you try and go it on your own too much, you're going to end up left in the cold, while at the end game big alliances form, at which point it could get very tricky for you, and you may have to go cap in hand to the alliances to beg your way in and try and force your way back into an alliance to give yourself the defense and the power to be able to push on. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think down in the comments, or jump over to my Discord and say hi. There is a link to my Discord in the comments and the description, as well as links to my Twitter and my Patreon, guys, and my affiliations with Fanatical and Overclockers UK. As always, I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you for your time.